We've got an exciting year at classes planned here. Last 2 years we've gotten great feedback. With the quarantine this year, it doesn't look like we're going to be able to do that. We are doing individual tours, walking around with people, keeping the social distancing. But I think what we're going to do is go ahead and do some tours this year because the people in those classes were excited to see it through the stages here on the farm. So just to break down for everyone, this is a half acre. Less than a half acre we're growing on with the driveway and the carport and the house, and back behind the tiny house. But it's a half acre permaculture designed food forest. We're in the city of Asheville, North Carolina, as you can hear the trash truck behind us probably. We're 7 years old now. What we've learned to do is to capture and harvest those energies around us, storing them, and then returning that surplus that the landscape gives us from that to the land around us, the animals, insects, plants around us, and even the people. We give away some food. I'm not going to make this tour a class or anything. I might talk a little about the guilds and the connections, but I just want to go around real quick and have a look at the different areas in the gardens and see what's going on. Have a listen as we walk around, if you can hear all the birds. See how many things are flowering and fruiting already, the surplus that this is creating already. I thought we were past our first frost day. It's May the 6th right now, but it looks like we're gonna have a frost this Saturday. More than a frost, a freeze. It looks like 28 degrees, somewhere between 28 and 30 degrees. It's a whole nother long story. My YouTube has a video, the 3 stages of climate change. If you're interested in that, have a look there. I won't go on about it here. This time we openly talk about it, discuss it. This lockdown time is a great time to redesign our life. This yard, all of this came from me crashing and then awakening, trying to awaken, in the process of awakening to the issues around us and some of the solutions to them. And the big solution I found after many tries with hydroponic gardening and aquaponic gardening and layer gardening took me to permaculture, which is mimicking nature by observing it through the seasons, making those connections and seeing how the forest does it. We can replicate it in our yards, making much less work for us. Yes, this was an incredible amount of work in this half acre to do this in 7 years. But it came to me this morning, now I'm really just getting to enjoy it. I'm looking around, there's never a lack of things to do here. But there's less things that have to be done and more things are taking care of themselves. Examples, this is poking me in the eye, and this is a black locust. It's flowering all around us right now. The bigger one smells just beautiful. It just smells wonderful. This is a legume. Looks like a pea leaf. Melinda was out here yesterday and saw one. I took a flower into her yesterday. I took some flowers into Melinda yesterday with the leaves on it, and that's the first thing she said is, "Oh, it looks like a pea." Yes, it does. So those patterns in nature tell us it's probably in the legume family and a nitrogen fixer just by seeing that, and it is. This is coming out of the hugel mound here. Probably put a seed put there by an animal, but I chop this back every year. It's fixing nitrogen in its root systems. But knowing those connections in our yard and knowing how nature plants with those 7 layers of a food forest, we'll see if I can recite them from memory. We got our rooting layer, our ground cover, our herbaceous layer, our climbers, our fruit bushes, short fruit trees, medium-sized trees, and your large nut trees, your canopy layer. I think I messed that up. It's easy enough to find it, the 7 layers of a food forest. And by mimicking that here and putting as many of those layers all around us in this yard, acting like a forest, but picking plants that'll work for those needs in the forest, whether it be fixing nitrogen from the air, pulling nutrients from the ground and storing it in its leaves, calling in those birds and insects around us we hear to come in and do the pollinating, calling in the beneficial insects to help the battle against the other insects that are decimating our plant life, figuring out their niche and what they fill, whether it is that ground cover, herbaceous layer, a rooting crop, a climber, an understory, like these gooseberries here, that'll grow fine with shade, an apple tree or pear tree next to us that needs as much sun as it can possibly get. These understory cherries like cornelians and Nanking cherries that will do okay with less sun. Layering those down in our yard, thinking three-dimensionally in our planting, mixing annuals and perennials in. You can see peas in the background here, strawberries being perennials filling the front, carrots within, beans behind me, radish and some carrots down there, yellow raspberries, a jewel gooseberry, a hamaku red gooseberry, a red currant, red raspberries, cornelian cherries, and a large pear, all in this small guild here. And I won't continue naming things farther than that. That's right here. Learning to mix in the perennials with the annuals. I think at this point, we'll just go have a look around. I'll name some things that we're seeing here. I hope I don't start trying to name all of it. Here comes the ducks they're going to want in. I'm going to show you how they come in here. They're slug patrol in here. It's hard this time of year. They do like strawberries. They'll take a few strawberries. We have a pond up here where we nurse plants for the other ponds. They like to get in there and eat that and the tadpoles, so I got to keep an eye on them this time of year. But they are allowed in. This is our oldest one. This is Big Sis, the female. We communicate really well. She's obviously the boss. Stay out of that pond. And don't eat my strawberries. Hey! Nope, that's mine. She got it. So like I said, they like the strawberries. And they like to get in this pond. But now they're just going to wander around and sift through the wood chips in the garden beds looking for insects. Killing slugs. Well, eating slugs. Changing that protein into fertilizer for us as they walk around. It's a herb spiral here. This is a short-term annual garden. You see in my other videos, I talk about it quite a bit. So this is our zone 1 area. This is something we're in twice a day at least. As I come down from upstairs into the greenhouse, feed the fish in the aquaponic unit, let the chickens and ducks out, harvest whatever food's ready in this area for the day that we need. The short-term annuals, meaning the stuff that's in here grows quick and is back out of here. Our greens, our lettuces, peas, green beans for eating green, tomatoes, stuff we eat every day. And there's strawberries mixed in and some onions mixed in for the green onions. But then down below is where we start growing things like garlic and potatoes and corn, dry beans, winter squash. That'll all be mixed in with the perennials here. Areas we don't have to look at it much, just once in a while wandering through there, making sure there's no bug damage or disease, but it doesn't need as much attention as up here. On the perimeter, out here, there's more planted in guilds, full-on guilds. There's still some annuals mixed in, but mostly perennials. So for a recap, this is the short-term annual garden. Zone 1 in permaculture. We're in here multiple times a day, at least twice a day. As we come down, we let the chickens and the ducks out for the day. We feed the fish. We harvest food for the day. In the evening time, we come back out. We harvest maybe some more food in the evening. Put the chickens and ducks up for the night. A lot of times we're out here more than that during the day, but at least those 2 times during the day. So that's a zone 1 routine. We're always out here. And zone 1 is concentric circles working out from your house in a perfect world, but it's not. Think of the areas in your yard that you visit and how often you visit them. If it's an everyday routine, it's going to be in the zone 1. Even the driveway to your car, going to the deck. For us, it's this routine in the backyard. But now I don't have to worry about the ducks as much. I want to go through and just do a real quick tour. We'll do zone 1, short-term annuals. Quick walk down through below that, the long-term annuals. And out and around the food forest. Just have a look at some of the things that are fruiting and flowering right now. This is the first swale. So all the water coming down off the driveway goes through this first garden bed, is slowed and stopped here until this swale fills up, overflowing of the ones below it, where it starts to branch off either ways and do the same thing until all these swales fill up down through here. These are currants. This guy's been having a feeder on the yard. Just a cherry red currant. One of the many reasons we plant comfrey. No, you're not coming in. You like to eat my strawberries too much. You're staying out there. So now we're at the bottom of the fenced-in annual garden. Like I said, this is the long-term annual garden. We've got onions, parsnips, carrots, beets, peas, beans climbing the fence around the perimeter, multiple cabbages and different carrot patches around here. So stuff we don't have to pay a lot of attention to. We come harvest when it's ready. Like I said, once in a while we walk through looking for insect damage or if a disease is set in or something, a blight. But in this area, there's also all these perennials around me. And this main guild here is a pear tree, Moonglow, I believe. It's got an Ayers and a Kiefer grafted onto it. Below it, it's got a, below it, it's got a Jostaberry. That's an understory bush. It'll do fine in the shade as this fills out more. A gooseberry on the other side. They're cousins in the same family. The Jostaberry is a cross of the gooseberry and the currant that we just looked at. The currant's on the back side of it. There's a Cornelian cherry on the back side of it. A Nanking cherry here on the front of it. Perennial leeks out around it. Multiple cabbages. Spinach. Strawberries around the front. Austrian winter peas, which you eat as in our stir fries, is really good tasty green mixed in. Daylilies, multiple comfrey. That's all in just this small area around this. The asparagus out front, black raspberries, a pawpaw, a nitrogen-fixing gummy berry, a blackberry, yellow raspberries, anise hyssop, too many ground cover, well, clover, claytonia, chickweed, some wild strawberries mixed in, violets. Here we have more comfrey, more daylilies, sochan, blackberries, a hazelnut, another apple with a couple grafts onto it, Jonah Gold with a Gold Rush grafted onto it, and I don't know what the other one I grafted onto it is anymore. But there's also mulberry, elderberries in the back, a grape climbing the fence there getting started, strawberries, a young service berry, lots of clover, got some peanuts planted in here, and then more raspberries and blackberries up the fence line here. So all that is almost within our 6-foot distance, social distancing, in any direction of me. So in a 12-foot swath here is all those plants that I've named. So that's a good explanation down here. There's more of the same behind it with the annuals mixed in. But now we'll go have a look outside of this on the perimeter of the fence, where it's planted in more guilds like this, but with the majority of it being perennials and maybe some annuals mixed in. And a lot of those are self-seeding annuals that just show up every year for us. So we'll go have a look at that now. So all those berries, all that food before our last frost, in this small little area that we walked, this one walkway we just walked through and looked at those gooseberries and justberries and nankings and cornelians and varieties of pears and apples and gummies and red raspberries and yellow raspberries and black raspberries and sochan and grapes and. I feel like I just get repeating myself. But it fascinates me that so much can be grown in a small area. So here's the grapes. You guys are not coming in again. They just saw how bad you are. Yeah. So we were just inside of here. Had a look at the short-term annuals, the long-term annuals. Now we're out in the food forest. This is all planted in guilds. Down here we don't get much light. I think I'll take a short video and show that and attach it. How the canopy is almost touching down here, so it's almost in the shade all the time. So I plant things like this pawpaw. This young pawpaw should do okay with the shade to get its branches up into the light. And kind of a more wide open gill below it because it's a shady area here, but we still have elderberries and blackberries and mint ground cover and black raspberries over there. But I think I'll go over into this side where it gets more sun and explain a thicker guild and show you the plants within that. We're almost at the bottom of the property, not much to see us behind here. There's the bottom pond that the water collects in, a small tiny home we built, and then it's just kind of thick, dense brush. So we'll go over and have a look there. Like I said, that's the back of the property. Comes to a sharp point. It's just too shady to do any real intensive growing in there, so we just leave it wild. But again, this Nanking cherry is just loaded with cherries for us down here in this really shaded area. Only getting intense midday sun. Hi Angel, what are you doing? Do you want to come out? Okay, so I've explained this guild in a few videos. I have a picture of it in its earlier stages. This apple tree has got 4 grafts on it, so it's 5 types of apple in one. It has multiple layers within this, from its tallest layer working its way out in all directions. It's designed to flower and fruit from the inside out. So the stuff, and to flower throughout the year in succession. So that'll give us fruit. So that'll give us fruit in succession throughout the season. But also bring those pollinators in throughout the season. So having succession in our flowers and in our fruits. which are also flowers. So down in the bottom, there's Sochan, Jerusalem artichokes, multiple soil fixing crops I've just thrown in there, seeds over the years that seem to stick around. Some Austrian winter pea, some hairy vetch, some buckwheat, strawberries down front, some strawberries down front here, some calendula, a flower to bring in the beneficials, nasturtiums, black-eyed Susans, a range of flowers throughout. Some horseradish you can see flowering here. Some violets mixed in, a blackberry. Coming down from the apple tree with 4 grafts on it, so 5 types of apple in this one medium-sized apple tree. We have a gummy berry, which is extremely productive and one of the tastier berries on the property. I have lots of pictures of the jellies and jams, mostly jams, and eating those fresh. Maybe I'll add some of those pictures in. But that's the nitrogen fixer in this guild, working its way down. So we have the clovers and the Austrian winter peas, I think the buckwheat, fixing nitrogen in the ground cover layer. Then we have multiple bush layers fixing nitrogen as well. There's an autumn olive here, cut back heavily. This is a sterile one. It's an amber one from One Green World, so we don't have to worry about it being invasive. We have this tall gummy berry, a fig next to it, and then cut back is a silverberry. The silverberry is one I've talked about before that is our last to flower on the property. So the silverberry on the end flowers Thanksgiving-ish, end of the year, giving fruit March, start of April. It's just finishing now. That's a nitrogen fixer as well. The gummy berry has just finished flowering, is actually quite a ways into fruiting now, going into May. The autumn olive is just finishing flowering and setting fruit. So even in those nitrogen fixers, we have flowers throughout the year and berries throughout the year. Next to the autumn olive is another Josta berry. This is our parent plant. It's a great big one. I'm gonna have a look at it. And one of the parent plants for our gooseberries. It's also a great big one loaded with berries. Those will be a little later in the year. They're not fixing nitrogen, but it's a wonderful flower, bringing in lots of insects when it fruits. And the fruit is really tasty as well for us and the birds. What? I don't think they can see you. So we're just talking about this guild till the ducks interrupted. And even on the ground, we can see the self-seeding annuals that come back. That's amaranth and violets and some black-eyed Susans, wide-leaf plantain. This is loaded with apples this year. These will turn a dark purple, almost look black, the Josta berry. So you can see the size of that Josta berry plant. We use Angel for reference. It's I've pruned it to be as wide as it is tall. I won't get into that. I've got videos on how I prune those and shape those. This is a gooseberry, a cousin to it. I was making all those out, but it's just loaded with berries. Those are going to swell up quite a bit more to be quarter size. Well, these will finish more the size of a dime. And there's wineberries, more horseradish, more Sochan, elderberries. These elderberries are just about to flower. With a gold rush behind it. That'll come up and be the canopy layer here. with a Nanking cherry underneath, black raspberries. I know these themes repeat themselves. We're trying to fit as much food as we can in a small area. And these are all the berries that do well in our area. Many of the berries that do well in our area. This is an understory cherry. That'll be a sour cherry. Well, we're really deep in the shade over here. We don't get much sun. These are in the shade just after noon, but they still do really well. This Sochan is just getting to the point where we're not going to eat it much longer. But that's an immense amount of greens from just this one Sochan plant. These are Sunchokes, Jerusalem artichokes. That gives us a tuber that'll come up and be a nice sunflower in the fall. There's a hazelnut on the end. That's our fence to the neighbors. This is the silverberry that I was talking about underneath. See the silver backside of the leaf, and Aleagnus. There's a berry there. I can't get to focus with one hand. Above that is a fig. It's already got its first figs on it. Like I said, this gummy berry just gets an incredible amount of berries on it. The whole time fixing nitrogen for this guild. Some blackberries. We just walked up out of there. Silverberry, the fig, the gummy berry. The key species being the apple with multiple grafts. Now we're on the back side of it with a few more elderberry plants. Working our way into the next apple tree and the guild around it. Some incredibly happy birds. And again, another apple tree here. And the guilds around it. I've let it get a little more wild here. And from there, this is Goldenrod. We let it stay, brings in lots of beneficials. I contain it to this area. So as all these fill out, that hazelnut, it's not going to get much taller, it'll stay bush shape. This fig will get quite big if we let it, but I like to cut it back to keep it harvestable. The gummy berry next to it, same thing, a nitrogen fixer, so I chop that back quite often on a 3-year rotation. Fixing more nitrogen in the soil when I do it, as is above is below, from my understanding. Correct me if I'm wrong. And up here is another fig. I should mention they're not all the same figs. We have 3 varieties of figs. There's a Celeste Fig, a Chicago Hardy, and a brown turkey. If I really put some thought on it, I can tell you which is which. I know it's a brown turkey. But I take cuttings all the time and stick them in. I don't keep a good track on it. Once they fruit, I know. Do the same thing with apples. There's multiple varieties. And most all the apple and pear trees have multiple grafts on them. So we're bringing that diversity into a small area. Soon this apple tree, and this apple tree, and this fig, the apple tree below it, the pear trees in the bottom of the annual garden, the pawpaw just outside, will be close to or all touching each other. So a lot of these are planted too close. This fig and apple will be too close, but I'll maintain that with pruning. But they'll be touching, creating a shaded area in this bottom where all these understory plants are meant to still produce. I use this area as an example. It still looks like we get a lot of sun here, but I've sat here with a friend and his toddler picking figs off this tree, sitting in the shade of these trees on a day that was in the 90s and almost unbearable out in the garden. they really set home how important these microclimates are and planting appropriately in them. Using things like stone to collect that energy, collect that heat energy and hold it overnight. Are you following us? I think you're following us. So the young Chicago hardy fig. Another gummy in the back, a different flavor. It's a kefir pear. Illinois' ever-bearing mulberry. Okay. All right, I'm gonna end this tour here. The ducks followed us up. This is what we call the river garden. A lot of the same things we've been talking about. Black-eyed Susans, a variety of irises and lilies. This has got apple mint in there, and strawberries, and a gummy berry. The Asian pear is the key species in the back. This is actually a dwarf one, won't get much bigger. A couple different varieties of honeyberry mixed in. It's like a blueberry. It doesn't need the acidic soil necessarily. And different succulents and flowers, like I was mentioning, to different succulents and flowers to bloom throughout. The black raspberries, 2 kinds of European elderberry on one on either side. Blackberries down front as well. Another Josta berry, red raspberries, multiple mints, some potatoes mixed in, and on and on. This is the elderberry I said there. So this elderberry will grow up to almost touch the Asian pear behind us, to touch the kefir pear next to it, the apple below it, this Asian pear, down through those apple trees I talked about there, and the guilds around them. We just walked up from down below there. This is the west side of the garden, so it doesn't get much afternoon sun. Other than this patch right here where the sun sets, working its way across all of our fruit trees in the yard, from one side to the other, planted in guilds. I think what I'll do is maybe go up on the deck and close from there. What? Was I in your way? Was I in your way, Angel? Animals, small animal protein, that's part of it, getting to know your animals. See how friendly we are. It takes time and training. They're all trainable. They train me as well. We've got some thunderstorms rolling in, so I'm going to keep this short. And we'll just mosey on up to the deck. What do you want? You're not coming in here. You can go back in here and see your people if you want. I guess that's 2 things I didn't show. Is there's a peach tree here and the aqua hut. So I'm going to end the rain starting. This is a tour on May 6th to have a look as things start filling in here at Fat Ninja Farm. The way we've tried to mimic nature, catching and storing the energy any chance possible. The sun, the rain, the heat, the plant matter, the food. Planting in guilds to mimic nature, so all the plants have a purpose to help one another, to work in a symbiotic relationship. If you like this video, please like and share, subscribe. If there's something I didn't cover in here that you'd like to see covered, please put it in the comments section. As always, be kind to one another. Let's help each other with the changes ahead. I'm George. This is Fat Ninja Farm, Permaculture Design Foodforest, in the city limits of Asheville, North Carolina. Peace.